Action! Welcome to another incredible episode of Paul's Old Ass Movie Classics. We are on episode 10 of this series, and we're chugging along here. And this week's episode, well, before this week's episode, of course, I have my partner in crime watching these old ass movie classics with me is Drew Sturt. Welcome,
Happy
Drew.
to be here. I can't believe it's the 10th episode.
I know. And this week, of course, we're going to be watching The Third Man from 1949. This movie you can watch now on TUBI with ads, of course. But TUBI has a lot of great. You're not familiar with TUBI. It's a pretty much a free app, but it'll have advertising. So it's kind of like old school. It's almost like a USA network back in the day when you have cable.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to that, but they have a lot of movies that you can watch with ads. So
There's
uh,
way more movies than I realized.
yeah, it's a pretty, I mean, I've always heard of it. I just never watch it because I always have other ones, but it's with it's a good channel, especially for what we're doing, because you can watch a lot of other streaming movies that aren't available on other um, services. So you can watch it on Tubi. This movie is directed by Carol Reed, who also directed Oliver and Mutiny on the Bounty. And this was written by Greene, who is more of a novelist, really. Didn't have a ton of writing credits, but there's a movie that they redid in like late 90s, I believe, called End of the Affair. He wrote the original novel, which they also made a movie of that. And this movie stars Joseph Cotten, Alida Valli, and Orson Welles. And Orson Welles obviously was probably the biggest star in this, even though he has limited role in this. But the premise of this movie, pulp novelist Holly Martins travels to shadowy post-war Vienna, only to find himself investigating the mysterious death of an old friend, Harry Lime. And this one has an IMDb rating of 8.1. Box office, this budget was a million and grossed 1.2 million. So a box office success, just barely. And this actually won the 1951 Oscar for Best Cinematography, which becomes very apparent when you're watching this, how incredible the cinematography is. We'll get into that. And this was also nominated for Best Editing and Best Director in the Academy Awards. And this won the BAFTA for the Best British Film in 1950. So with that, Drew, what was your favorite thing about this film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? And what was your favorite thing about it?
I did. So I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I thought I might. Um, it was very good, and it's one of those ones that I think I'll catch more of, sort of with repeat viewings.
Yeah.
And one that I had not seen until now, which is surprising given Orson Welles and kind of film noir. Um, so I did like it a lot. Like I said, I think I do need to see it a few more times. My favorite part is just, and you just alluded to it, is the cinematography. I think there's some clever writing as well. And I think that there's good performances, but the cinematography, the atmosphere that is created from the jump, the first 5-10 minutes of the film, and you've got like it's showing you post-war Vienna, and you've got the black market, and the guy's got the watch on his, he pulls up his sleeve and he's got the watches, and then there's a dead body floating in the thing, just rubble strewn about. So much of it's black and white, which to me, I I know that this is why I'm on the old ass podcast, right? I love black and white films. To me, they're so much just more rich
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
in sort of how it is presented to the viewer. And so the atmosphere of it, especially the nighttime scenes, all of the sort of like, what do they call it? The Dutch,
Cool.
what's say it again?
Dutch angle.
Dutch angle, kind of like what we both
Yeah.
have here.
Canted or Dutch angle.
Yeah.
For the viewer, a Dutch angle or a canted view is so most people think you shoot and the horizontal line is even. A Dutch angle will be kind of canted. They're canted, so the horizontal line is more. You can see it kind of in the picture behind me, but you see how the straight line here. Wait, how do I do it? The straight line there, that's not straight, right? None
Yeah.
of these lines are really straight. They're all kind of canted. That's because the camera is like this as opposed to straight on.
Well,
So
in both of our backgrounds, right? So like you just inescapable in this film, and it creates a part of the mysterious atmosphere. And so for me, I liked a lot about this film, but the cinematography, especially for a film as early as this was, I thought was incredibly mature and unique and kind of unlike anything I had seen in other films around this time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm kind of with you. At first, I was like all in this movie. I'm like, this movie's awesome. And overall, I think this movie's awesome. I think it's a very good film, especially for its time period. I think you can see a lot of its innovation. I know Martin Scorsese, this was one of his favorite films. He wrote a paper about this in college, and it's a very well crafted film. Almost very Hitchcockian. So if you like Alfred Hitchcock, I feel like you'll like this film. And I love probably the most famous thing that I love about this film is both the cinematography and, like you're saying, the the city of Vienna itself, because this Vienna here is a character, and
100%.
not all films have the location as a character, but this one for sure has it, and it really plays a large role in almost everything. It plays a large role, and then when you really think back of it, I mean, this was released in 1949, so you're literally talking like the war ended 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like 4 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't even think that the city streets where it's like blown up bricks and rubble, I think that's real.
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%. This is not a movie set. This is
This is an
like,
unrebuilt Europe.
yeah, like there's a scene where they're showing and there's just a whole building just blown up, and it's like, yeah, we'll get to that eventually. It's not our primary concern right now.
But
And
it's so much of it is beautiful, like the interior of so many of their homes and apartment
yeah.
buildings, just beautiful.
Yeah, it really reminded me of if you've seen it, Roman Holiday, where kind of again, this not a lot of films are shot on location like this. You know what I mean? And so this is still a very new thing here for cinema. So to have a movie only take place in Vienna, that's new. For only to take place in Rome for Roman Holiday, that's new. And it's similar time period, I believe. So I really love that aspect of it. And again, the cinematography right away. I thought this was really well done. I actually thought the pacing was good in the beginning. I thought the middle of this film kind of loses it a little bit, where it's almost just like, okay, like there wasn't enough like reveals, or didn't kind of. I thought that part could have been cleaned up a little bit, because beginning and the ending are great. The middle could use some work, but overall, like I said, I thought it was a solid film. Another film it reminded me of, and this is not a contemporary comparison, but this is just in that time period.
Yeah.
Like if you like North by Northwest,
Oh yeah.
this movie is definitely kind of along those lines. And so yeah, uh I think we kind of already answered this, but if you want to add anything, does this movie hold up?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I mean, I think both stylistically in terms of like cinema and the art of filmmaking for sure and acting. But I would also say just in general, like some of the themes, right, continue to hold up. Like we're unfortunately we have a lot of global conflict happening right now in the world with Russia and Ukraine and
Yeah,
Israel, Gaza and all of that. And I think that anytime you have world conflict like that, you have black markets open up, you have people, nefarious individuals trying to take advantage of the people that are sort of victim in these situations. And we're seeing and we're hearing about that. So I think the themes hold up as well as the film.
yeah, for sure. um Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I've kind of already, I said, like, the with the editing and the pacing of it, and again, along with the cinematography, I really thought I was watching almost like a newer film, because again, like for that time period, a lot of movies don't cut like the way they do, or really move the way they do in the beginning. And I thought this did a good job with that.
I loved all the car scenes, like when they were driving, like I don't know how they did it, but I don't know. It just so many of the shots in this were very unique to me.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, looked great. This film looked great. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. And I'm kind of with you. I would definitely watch this again. So, uh, contemporary comparison. I know I can start with this if you want.
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
so I had actually a lot of older comparisons opposed to contemporary comparisons.
That
Uh,
doesn't sound like you.
no, but like like actually around that same time period.
Oh,
Like again, like I say, like North by Northwest, even Roman Holiday. I thought those movies. I felt those movies in this one. And then the other one, newer, and again, we're talking contemporary is 1990s apparently for me. But The Fugitive, was,
mm,
especially when they're kind of in the sewers, it totally had me for The Fugitive in the way, um, in kind of the same way where it's like, Tommy Lee Jones is very similar to the captain or whatever you want to call him. I don't know his exact role, but where he's kind of the antagonist in the beginning, but not really. But he's still, that role could change, but at the same time, as of now, he's an antagonist,
yeah.
and kind of the same thing that happens with this film. Spoiler alert. But I just you're kind of in this nice little chase scene underneath the city. And by the way, that looked amazing too. The sewer system was very
Incredible.
photogenic.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I love that part. Almost wish there was more of that in a weird way. Like I feel like there could have been more with that, but yeah, that's kind of what I have. If I rack my brain, I could probably think of more, but
No, I like that one, especially yeah, the sewer system for sure. I was having a hard time. I don't know why. Like I kept getting hung up with the World War II era, and then also sort of the mystery piece. I ended up on a relatively modern Liam Neeson movie. I don't know if you've seen called Unknown. Um, what
I know of it. I haven't seen it.
yeah, he basically it's a case of sort of like he wakes up from a coma and people are basically gaslighting him and saying like you're not who you know you are, and he has to spend the rest of the time like kind of proving who he is, and there's like nefarious people kind of hidden behind the scenes. So I'm it's an imperfect contemporary comparison, but just kind of that mystery and sort of disorientation and like unintentionally getting involved in it.
Yeah,
So it's that.
sure. I haven't seen it, so I couldn't tell you if that's a good one or not. Uh, should this movie be remade today, and who should it star?
It's interesting. I think it holds up so well that I don't know that it has to be remade, but I would love to see a modern, a modern redo of it. So I would say sure. Like there I would not have a problem with it being remade.
Yeah,
And if we were gonna remake it, who would I have in there? I kind of like Joseph Cotten in this is so interesting. He's such a loser for
yeah,
the most like you almost never is there a leading man that like doesn't even come close to getting the girl. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's just interesting, and he just always ends up getting drunk and sad and whatever. But so I was trying to figure out somebody that like but also Cotton has played plenty of other people in his time where he's tough and that kind of thing.
yeah.
I'm trying to think like who has range and who can be kind of sad sack, but also like is cool. I was thinking Mark Ruffalo could maybe play Joseph Cotton.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
that'll work.
and then I was thinking of somebody like Orson Welles, as you mentioned earlier, is on the screen for very little.
Yeah,
And when he's on there, other than the fact that he says old man, as often as the person I'm about to reference says old chap in or whatever he says in Gatsby, but you can't take your eyes off him. He is a magnetic force.
yeah,
So I was trying to think of somebody that could do that and also has taken a turn at playing kind of evil, understated evil more recently. And I'm gonna go with Leo DiCaprio. I think could play Orson Welles' character.
yeah. Sure, if you can have the budget for that.
Well, yeah,
That
I'm
would add a lot of money to your budget. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I agree. It's so well done that you don't necessarily need to remake it. The only way, I mean, I don't know if I would. I mean, I kind of like the idea of remaking it in a different setting, but to me, it's like then it's kind of The Fugitive. really is. Because again, it's like who's innocent, who's not, it really is becomes the fugitive. So, but yeah, I would say for the sake of argument, sure. Like I said, it is ultimately it's a good story, an entertaining story. And again, I think pick the location. I don't know if you could execute a post-war Vienna as good as this one did because it was literally post-war Vienna.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how well it would work, but sure. And then who would it star? Immediately I thought of Michael Shannon. One,
Oh,
because he actually kind of looks like Joseph Cotten. And
great
then
call.
yeah, and then he just has the voice. I think that would be great. And then kind of like you're saying, he has a lot of different personalities, Michael Shannon does. But I think he would definitely fit this character of, definitely wanting to drink a lot, but then, he's played down on his luck before. I was thinking of the Michael Shannon from Boardwalk Empire, you know what I mean? Which is almost a very similar character. Like he's so good at what he does, yet he's unsuccessful, and that was his character in Boardwalk Empire. Like he was a really good cop, but he's broke, and so I feel like he's can nail that role. And then I
And great call.
and then I'm kind of with you. I feel like you have to, just like they did with this one, like the Orson Welles character has to be a magnetic force, like a big time star that's willing to take a small role. Um, so I'm gonna give you two because one is a guy that does this often, and it would be like Matt Damon.
He does do it a lot.
He like no guy is better at doing a 10-minute role than him. Mark Wahlberg would even be similar, although I would prefer Matt Damon.
Yeah.
But Mark Wahlberg has done stuff like that where it just be a 10-minute role and he's good with that. And then the last one I think of, who actually I think would be the best in the role, would be Denzel Washington. I think would crush it because it's like Denzel and people would go see it because it's Denzel. And then they might be mad because he's only in it for 10 minutes, but he definitely has that. Like at first you're just like, awesome, here's Denzel, and then it's like, wait, he's not a good guy. So I don't know. I think that would,
Yeah, like Training Day Denzel.
yeah, exactly. Um, and obviously he can easily switch it up like that. So yeah, that would be mine. Awesome. Well, I think that's
I like that.
anything else you want to add about the movie?
No, like I think your point was a good one in terms of remaking it. Like the confluence of the world around it at the time made Vienna the most perfect backdrop for a
Yeah.
film like this you could ever ask for. And I don't think you could approximate that in real life anymore. And so for that, maybe that reason alone, it would be hard. But I wouldn't mind seeing him try. And like you said, it would take a specific couple of people.
I would want them to do it in a different country. Like I would not want them to try post-war
Oh,
Vienna
for sure.
and do a country that is dealing with something similar to where, but it still has like something either like a China or like maybe post Cold War Russia would be kind of cool, maybe.
Yeah.
But something where it's something historically significant happened, and then it still has a culture on its own.
Like a post Chernobyl, almost like something.
Oh, that would, yeah. Although Chernobyl's way out in nowhere though for Russia.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Post Cold War, like, or post Cold War Berlin, right? Like that would obviously work very well because then you can have like the wall in the background all knocked down or however. I don't remember the pictures, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. But I think something like that would work. So, but yeah, ultimately, folks, I think we're saying we both like this. It was entertaining. Like I said, I think if you're into noir, if you're into Alfred Hitchcock, we're probably going to list some of these movies, but Maltese Falcon. If you're into film noir, you're going to like this film. This film is definitely one of the preeminent film noir films, and I'm pretty sure if this is on everybody's top 20 list of film noir films of all time, this is probably going to be on there. So you're talking about an original classic film noir that's also executed very well in terms of all of the main crafts of filmmaking, your cinematography, your editing, even your directing. And the only thing I'm going to add, oh, I want to add two things. Um, One, I loved the music sometimes, the Vienna music. So it's like, I loved it sometimes. And then other times there's like, okay, can I get a real score now? Like to add tension to it instead of the Vienna music for the entire movie. I didn't need the Vienna music the entire time. I loved it for some scenes. And then it's like, this would be awesome if I had Hans Zimmer going in the background, like during some of the intense chases and stuff like that. So,
I agree.
but yeah, I'm a huge music guy. And then lastly, a couple of notes about this film. Like we mentioned, homeboy Orson Welles only shot
Oh
uh
boy.
yeah, he only shot like 7 days on this film because he's only in 10 minutes of the movie. And he also refused to shoot in the actual sewer. So all of his close-ups in the sewer are shot in in London at the London studios there.
Yeah.
And body doubles on all the wide shots. And a couple of them you can kind of tell, like, it doesn't look like Orson Welles at all. So I thought that was,
I saw that too, and I saw also that they had a hard time keeping track of him. Like he would just disappear.
yes.
Uh, like which I mean, he was an enigmatic genius for sure.
Well, isn't this like his last film?
I don't think so. No,
Because he falls off the earth very close to this.
no, because he puts on weight later.
Well, he's not small there.
One
Like,
thing was,
because
go ahead.
obviously he did Citizen Kane, and then I thought he directed like one film after that, and then he just became an actor after that. I
He did
thought,
like Touch of Evil.
right?
By the way, is a great film. Um, while you look it up, I was gonna say, so I'm a huge Graham Greene fan as a novelist, and so it was super interesting that he wrote this. And have you ever read any of his
No,
books, like The Quiet American or anything like that?
no.
So he's has does a lot of. So he was also dabbled in spycraft himself, kind of like Ian Fleming. And so he wrote Our Man in Havana about Cuba, kind of around the time of heading into the Cold War. The Quiet American is more around sort of the Vietnam time period. But anyway, he's a super, super interesting author writing about a lot of sort of disaffected people in war-torn areas, and that checks with this movie for sure.
His career is all over the place. I mean, he never obviously Citizen Kane was his pink. You're right. He did like Touch of Evil. Um,
The Eagle was like
I mean,
1958.
he did direct. I don't know why I had this. I thought I remember from film school, like he's literally stopped directing, but that's not really the case. He just wasn't as prominent as you'd think he was after Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I think he became too challenging to work with.
Yeah, that's probably it. But
He was kind of an egomaniac.
nice, nice, awesome. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for the episode. We have our list today, which will be our top five 1940s films. A lot to choose from here. Kind of what your cup of tea is. I have a very unique list that's going to be different probably than a lot of people, but a lot of good ones got left out, and there's probably even more I didn't even write down. So, what's your number five, Drew?
This was super hard. I left off a ton. It could have been a Humphrey Bogart only category for me, but
Yours.
I chose to go away from that. Number five for me is Rope. We referenced Hitchcock a little bit earlier. It is an amazing film. Farley Granger, John Dahl, and Jimmy Stewart. Very, shot in basically one set, and unbelievable tension. Just a great film. Brilliant.
Yeah, that one's good. Wasn't didn't beat these other ones, but just thought that was a solid film. My number five is probably a film I've seen the most out of all of these ones, and I had to give it its props, but it's Pinocchio. And sometimes you forget about these Disney movies, how old they are and how culturally relevant they are. But Pinocchio, obviously, for many people, I mean, it was a huge box office success. And obviously they made a ride of it at Disneyland. So wanted to give the shout out to Pinocchio. It's now been remade 72 times since then, but want to give a shout out to the original because I do remember the original. Again, big impact on my childhood, and I always want to give love to to any film that actually we saw before film school. So Pinocchio is my winner.
Yeah.
Number four is a film I saw in film school, and I've seen it a couple times. But this is probably one of the, I believe it's a screwball comedy, but don't quote me on that right now. I didn't do any research on it, but it's Philadelphia Story.
Mm.
It stars Katharine Hepburn and what's his face, Cary Grant. And this is, they do a lot of films together. James Stewart's also in this one, but this is George Cukor directed this one. This is a big time classic. I believe it's kind of a three romance, right?
It's
Yeah.
been a million years since I've seen it.
Yeah, but I love this film again. Watched it in film school. Really, really enjoyed it. And if you have not seen this movie, this is again like one of the classic rom-coms. I mean, you're talking if you like rom-coms from like the 90s, this movie has a very similar feeling in terms of that. It really holds up well. And again, the chemistry between the three is excellent. So highly recommend it.
Funny, I I'm on the old movie podcast for a reason because I love old movies. And so I probably like a lot of the old leading ladies a lot more than a modern person might.
Yeah.
Um, but Katharine Hepburn, I cannot stand that woman.
I
Um,
agree 1,000,000%. This is maybe the only film I like her in.
it's crazy. Like
I don't like her
I
voice.
understand that she is like often considered the greatest actress of all time. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I can't stand her.
Yeah, I'm
I avoid
100%
her
agree.
movies like The Plague. But I mean, I acknowledge she must have been talented, but oh my God, I can't stand her. Number
No,
four,
I'm with you. I mean, there's maybe, I mean, she was rough in The African Queen, but
dude, she was brutal in the Africa. I mean, she was great at that
yeah,
role,
but
but
you hate her what you're supposed
hated
to.
her. Yeah,
She's Emily Blunt's character essentially from the Jungle Cruise. I
yeah.
mean, that's literally probably who they wrote it exactly after.
So anyway, yeah, she's tough, but it is what it is. But I acknowledge she's great, all that good stuff. Okay, so number four for me, I tried to kind
Oh,
of
Bringing Up Baby, that was the one I was thinking of. That's the other one. I like her in Bringing Up Baby and Philadelphia Story. After that, I don't really need to watch anything else of hers.
you could take her or leave her. I give me Lauren Bacall, give me Ingrid Bergman. I mean, you
Audrey
could
Hepburn, even. I love Audrey Hepburn.
Audrey Hepburn, Barbara Stanwyck. Like you can go down the list. Like I love a lot of these leading actresses, but Hepburn I could do without. Um, I tried to kind of create a little bit of a varied list in terms of style and genres. I don't know how
Five
well
film
I did.
noir films.
What's that?
The not five film noir
Not
films.
five bogey ones with film noir, which I could have done. This one is I Walked with a Zombie. I
Hmm.
watched it in college. I had a
Never even heard of it.
I had a French film professor in college, and he was hilarious. He hated
I
Americans.
walked with zombies.
I walked with a zombie.
I walked with a zombie. Francis D. Got a 7 IMDb. Tom Conway.
It's a
As Tourneur.
it's Jacques Tournier,
That's
who
exactly
did
what
who directed Out of the Past with Robert Mitchum, another great film noir from this decade. He
Jeez,
is a
you're digging deep on some of these films.
He's great. So I had this crazy French professor for one of my film classes in college, and he hated Americans. He would walk into class smoking a cigarette. This was definitely a time where weren't allowed yet, or anymore. You weren't allowed to smoke in classrooms or whatever. He'd like put his cigarette out, stomp it out on the ground, like you stupid Americans, you don't understand anything about film. So he showed this. I Walked with the Zombie, and it's beautiful. If you want to talk about atmospheric cinematography, black and white, it's on a Caribbean island. It's a little bit of mystery, a little bit of
Yeah.
voodoo. It's awesome. So I Walked the Zombie for me is number four, very ahead of its time for the 1940s.
You can watch this on guess where you can watch this.
Where?
Tubi.
Tubi. Let's go, Tubi. Number three for me is a Humphrey Bogart, not a film noir. Again, a little bit off the beaten path in terms of different styles. Treasure of the Sierra Madre.
I
Um,
love that film.
Walter and John Huston. It's
Yeah, the
you
movie's
know,
great. If
it's
you like Indiana Jones, it's very Indiana Jones-ish.
for sure, and it just like a high adventure, but also good and evil. It's great.
It's a great film. It's there's a part of me that thinks that movie should be remade. I know some people will say it's blasphemous, but I'm the only reason why I'm saying it is because I think it's such a great film, but I don't think a lot of it's not the most popular film. It's not
No,
it's not like tons of people are like, oh, I just watched Treasure of Sierra Madre. It's not like Gone with the Wind, you know what I mean? Where everyone's seen it. I feel like more people need to see Treasure of Sierra Madre. So
I agree. It is underwatched by a lot of people.
yeah. My number three is arguably considered the greatest film noir film, but I put Maltese Falcon,
Yep.
and you know, I think it's shocking maybe for some that it's that low, but I think my other two films, like I said, I just enjoy them more. But that's not saying anything to Maltese Falcon because it is one of the most enjoyable films of the 1940s. One that really holds up well, entertaining. Again, just like The Third Man, it was revolutionary on so many parts, but then it's just really well made, which is why again no one has remade it. But Maltese Falcon is it. My number two can be a number one. I mean, it's one A, one B for me on these. And I would argue this might be one any movie before 1980. Like if you want to say maybe the greatest, one of the greatest old ass movie classic, it's going to be Casablanca. I put it at number two only because I've probably watched it less than the other one, but this I think again, I you say this is number one. I have no argument with that. This movie is great. Screenwriting, everything. We've talked about this in other podcasts. It's been on many other lists for me, and it's always a very high film. I'm probably going to watch it soon again, just because of how well it is and awesome it is. And Casablanca, that's my number two.
Um, you're playing a lot of the greatest hits, and I respect it. I left Maltese Falcon off, though I agree it is often considered the best film noir. I also left off because I couldn't have all Humphrey Bogart. I also left off The Big Sleep, which is maybe my favorite film
I don't
noir.
know if I've seen that one. I might.
Tower of Hopes. It's really good. You'd like it.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sure
it's
I love it.
confusing. The plot, it's a very confusing adaptation of the novel, but it's very good.
Not
Um,
sure if I've seen it or not. Again, sometimes I've seen films. I don't remember necessarily everything I've seen, and some of these I watched so long ago. I get confused with the names if it has like a generic name, like The Big Sleep or The Apartment. Like I know I've seen The Apartment because I rewatched that one, but some of these films don't have like amazing names, like a Casablanca, where it's like, oh, I know I've seen this one. Citizen Kane, right? You know you've seen that one. So yeah, I might have seen The Big Sleep, but that's one I would want to rewatch anyway, just because I couldn't tell you what the movie's about.
I mentioned it with Orson Welles earlier, the screen presence, just back to I guess I'm giving my honorable mention to The Big Sleep. Lauren Bacall's screen presence in general, but in that movie is off the Richter scale. I mean, it's
Yeah,
crazy. So number two for me is Double Indemnity.
yeah,
I went with a non-bogey noir, also often considered maybe the best noir, 1944, pretty early in the
yeah,
genre.
that one's really good.
Stanwyck's
I basically
amazing.
chose Maltese Falcon over that one because I didn't want to, like you're saying, I didn't want to have 20 film noir films. So I was like, all right, which one
Yep,
do I like more? I did like Maltese Falcon a little bit more.
totally. And only because I had seen it more recently, it's a little bit, front of brain for me. Robinson is amazing in it. It's a very, very good movie. Set in LA, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then for me, number one was your number two. It to me, I think is probably for me the best movie of all time. And it's Casablanca. Uh, Bogart. I mean, again, set in World War II. It don't need to say a lot more, but I just think stylistically, the music, the acting, all of it is it's a perfect Hollywood film.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. You know, a side note, and I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but side note, I was hoping Allied would be like a modern Casablanca. I don't know if you remember that film.
Yeah,
I just thought it, for whatever reason, was just missing something. I'd have to rewatch it again to tell you why, but I didn't have that amazing feeling when I walked out of theater. But I had all the highest hopes for it because I just felt like it was
yeah,
similar setting. Like I'm like, dude, if there's if any movie has a shot to do it, it's this one. Robert Zemeckis directed it, and yeah, I don't know if it was the music or what. It just didn't. I didn't walk out of the theater like, man, I just watched something incredible right now.
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, my number one, you already mentioned it, but again, when I watched it, I was just like, oh man, this is Indiana Jones back then, and it's Treasure of Sierra Madre, and I just love the premise of the film. It's Humphrey Bogart, of course, and it's an adventure, and I love adventure films more than any other film. I think that's why I like it a little bit more than Casablanca. Casablanca's better crafted, but
Yeah.
you're talking, splitting hairs because this is still, like you're saying, this is still John Huston, one of the greatest directors of that era. And again, Walter Houston's excellent in that, who was also a director himself. But this is a heavy hitting film. If you have not seen it, you got to make sure you've seen Treasure of Sierra Madre. If you like any of these films that we've just mentioned, like the Casablancas, you're gonna love Treasure of Sierra Madre. I don't see how you couldn't. But
And I
excellent.
always forget the other guy's name, the actor, the sidekick. He's amazing in it also. I use the word amazing too much. I'm sorry. He's great in it.
There you go. Way to really deviate from your adjective list there.
Yeah. I can't remember his name. What's his name?
I'm looking right now.
He does a really, really excellent job in that film.
Tim Holt.
Yeah. And I don't know that I've ever seen him in anything else, but he does a really good job as the foil to Bogart as Bogart starts to lose his
Oh,
mind.
he was Virgil Earp. Oh, this guy's been in a ton of stuff. He was in The Magnificent Amberson, which was Orson Welles. He was also Virgil Earp in My Darling Clementine, which that's a solid film though. I kind of wanted to put it because I wanted to put a Western in there, but I didn't like it better than these films. I didn't want to shoehorn a Western in here just to do it.
Yeah.
Westerns, even like Stagecoach was late 30s. The Westerns in the 40s were still like whatever. And then the 50s is when
Yeah.
Westerns blow up again. So it's a weird decade for the Westerns.
You know what's interesting? Neither of us had it on our list. Is a film that most people consider the greatest film of all time, Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I wrote it down. It's not that entertaining, to be honest. Like
I
it
agree. I
it's
don't.
well crafted, of course, and it does things that no film have ever done, but it's not the most entertaining film. I
I
have it,
probably,
I own it. I,
probably need to watch it again, and maybe. But as a person that has always appreciated older films, that's one that I kind of finished it, and I was like, I get it, but I don't get it. Like, why is this
uh,
universally
I've
accepted?
never understood why it's the number one film of all time. I think that's a lie, and it's people that aren't probably. I don't want to hang out with you. Like if that's your favorite film of all time, like I don't want to ever hang out with you because
Yeah,
it's not.
they take themselves too seriously.
Yeah, like you must be very boring if that's your favorite film because
I have a zombie film on
it's like
this.
Raiders of the Lost Ark or Citizen Kane. Like, come on.
I,
Who we kidding here? Star Wars. You want to watch Star Wars tonight or you want to come over Saturday night and watch Citizen Kane with me? Like, get the F out of here.
well, and it's interesting, right? Because it's like Casablanca has exciting moments,
Oh yeah.
but a lot of it
I
is
would go Casablanca over Citizen
a
Kane.
billion percent. It's
I don't
number
get
one
the
on my
love.
list. But that's my point is like I don't know that Casablanca should be that much more exciting than Citizen Kane, but I just enjoy it so much more.
No, it's a better film and has I think better dialogue. Yeah.
Whatever. I didn't mean to get a sidetrack.
We may
I
review Citizen Kane just to do it again. We'll see. I mean, I know
we could
everyone's
do that. But my point is we great minds think alike, and the fact that neither of us put it on our list, I'm proud of us.
yeah.
Love it.
One film I didn't want to put because he's my favorite director, but Grapes of Wrath. Again, it's not the most entertaining film of all time, but it is a well-crafted film.
For sure.
It's a good story, of course. The book is amazing, but this is like not, again, like it's not. I don't enjoy it more than those five films I put.
There were
I had
so
Double
many
Indemnity as well.
films that I had to leave off. The 40s was jam-packed, man.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up for us for this week. On tap, we have next week. We're gonna check out the Valachi Papers from 1974. That's on Amazon Prime. You can check that out with us. Valachi Papers is ultimately it's a real life mobster film. Um, so check that out with us.
Charles Bronson, right?
Say it again.
Charles Bronson?
Yeah, Charles Bronson's in that
Charles
one.
Bronson. I love it.
Yeah, so it should be a good film. Pretty high ranking, all that good stuff. So looking forward to that one. And with that, Drew, that's gonna wrap it us. And that is a cut. Thanks, guys.